You can't heal when everybody's in your face, or you're still producing for people, or you're still, you're pouring from a cup that's empty. And people just go into deeper depressions and deeper anxiety trying to pour from a cup that's empty. You're more dry than you've ever been in your life because you haven't been poured into. So you have to have a season where you're poured into.
Hello, everybody. This is Tim Timmons with the 10,000 Minute Podcast.
Woo! Never heard of it.
Amoy Donice.
Oh, sorry. Hi, guys.
You silly. Chris Cleveland. He just waved, everybody. So if you're not watching this and you're listening, it was just a wave.
Oh, man.
Just a sweet, kind.
It was.
Hey, wave.
I was like, there's cameras. They can see me. Forgot we were a podcast for a second.
Yeah, because we have cameras.
Sorry.
Yeah.
My friend Mike Erie is always saying, he's like, Tim, you hug people with your eyes.
Okay.
Whoa, okay.
And I feel a little awkward sometimes because when I'm
do wear
listening
glasses,
to somebody.
So
Well, but
wonder how that works with it.
Am I doing it right?
Well, when I'm like, if I'm listening, I'm kind of like, I do something with. He's like, it's like you hug me with your eyes.
Wow.
So,
All right.
guys,
That's new.
start hugging people with your eyes and
Yeah.
with your bodies if it's appropriate, and if it's inappropriate,
There's got to be some boundaries.
don't do it.
Wow. So many
I
things.
don't know. Why did I think of because Chris kind of waved.
I did. Full circle.
Yeah. Anywho,
What are we doing here today?
we're just hanging out. We're shooting the stuff. Okay. Everybody, today we've got Jonathan Evans on,
Yes.
who is a stud. I mean, he was NFL linebacker. Was he?
Fullback.
That's what I said, fullback.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was right in my guess pre-show. I was like, he's the guy that blocks for the running back. And then
Yeah.
he talked about it. I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't say it out loud because I didn't want to seem like a dork.
You guys.
But internally, I was like, oh, I was so right.
Okay, so
So
everybody
glad I got
be
it.
listening for how many times Chris uses sports
metaphors.
analogies.
Oh, yeah, guys. It's too good.
You're like, so Jonathan, it's kind of like when you're running the ball down the field and your heart gets blown into pieces because
I did go heavy on the sports
He did.
metaphors
I
today.
loved it, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were there with him.
you were there with them.
Just trying to meet him.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I kept using soccer references. No, I didn't at all.
Yeah. And I was like, sports. Okay, I'm just going to listen today.
Sports balls. We love sports.
Cool.
Football.
Anywho, Jonathan's had quite a story and quite a journey to where he is now. What are there? Eight deaths in a year.
Year and a half. Crazy.
Year and a half. Yeah, just a lot of calamity and just sorrow, and it's really profound. A lot of the things that he's saying are really beautiful,
Yes.
and I think some great practices and some great things that we get to be encouraged by. Okay, Tim is done. Let's go. Hey everybody, welcome to the 10,000 Minute Podcast. My name's Tim Timmons. We've got Chris Cleveland over here.
What's
We've got
up?
Amoy Donice over here.
Hello.
And I just want everybody to know that I just turned off my kids' internets. And so at some point, they're going to definitely come down here.
Yeah, they're going to be
Angry?
upset.
They're going to appear in the door kind of like, Dad, what do you do? Why'd you do that?
It's going to be fine.
I mean, I would be upset too.
Well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Anywho, I'm a good parent. I'm really doing my best. And speaking of good parents, we've got Jonathan Evans over here. What's up, Jonathan?
Oh, what's going on, guys? How y'all doing?
Man, we're killing it. We're doing a Zoom interview right now. And Jonathan, something you don't know about me is that whenever we do Zoom interviews, I generally sweat and cuss.
Yes,
So-
it's true.
I'll try not to do it on this, but I'm definitely sweating because it just all the things have to happen. And poor Jonathan has sat here for a good bit, just kind of going, wow, guys, this has been a great use of my day so
Yeah.
far.
Thanks for wasting all of my time.
No, I'm good. Y'all.
Yes.
I'm good. I'm good.
Too good.
Jonathan, are you bald?
No, I'm not. I've got a little hair here, just a little. You can see.
Okay.
I still have the ability to have a nice little line and edge up
You were
there.
trying to
So-
find a connection.
Yeah, maybe don't say it like that, Jonathan. That's not the best way to say that you have the ability to. You've just chosen to, and I could too. It would be a
You
sweet
could have
line.
a nice little,
Yes, you
nice
could.
little line.
Be a line in the back that you could make a few cool cuts on. I'm just saying.
That's all right.
Okay, I just
Yeah,
didn't
it'll still
know
be visible.
how close we were going to be. All right. Wow, this has been great. This has been really great. Jonathan, even though you're not fully bald, you're real good looking. We'll just start right there, and we're gonna take that. Man, you do a lot. As Chris was saying just a second ago, like looking at your Instagram, you do 4,900 things. I mean, what are all the things that you're involved with right now?
Well, it starts with family. So family is number one. I have my wife, Kanika, who we met at Baylor University. I'm a Baylor Bear.
Come on.
And from there, sweet kids. We got 5 kids. Yes, 5.
Oh my gosh.
So I have a 13-year-old, an 11-year-old, let's see, where am I at? 8-year-old, 6-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 3-year-old. And so it's, the starting 5 is in. There's going to be no substitutions. We're all done. And so that's where it starts. You know what I mean? And so I have my family, and then, we're a ministry family. And so thanks to the Lord that he's allowed us to be anywhere as a part of his game plan. And so we have a cartoon coming out called Stories from a Storyteller, because we want people to not only be able to read the resource, but be able to watch the cartoon. These kids are stuck to these phones, these days. And so we figured we'd give them a resource parents can read to them at night before bedtime. But there's QR codes in the book that'll be coming out in the winter, kind of in February, where you can watch the cartoon of the story you just read. And those cartoons will be on Right Now Media and TonyEvans.org/stories. And so those cartoons start coming out in August. And so my kids get to come with me and do the voiceovers together and kind of do all of those things. So that's a fun deal. Then I have Fighting Your Battles, another book coming out. And, I work with my dad in ministry, chaplain of the Cowboys, chaplain of the Mavericks, so I am doing a little bit of running around. That's for sure.
Wow.
Okay. I'm exhausted officially.
I just feel inadequate,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I play the guitar. So
don't say it like that.
Yeah,
so
Jonathan,
funny.
you're killing. And
that's good though. We need that.
Yeah, we do. And it's weird. I don't want to be the guy to say this, but I've been a part of helping your brother sing. Just as
just giving him some tips.
Yeah. Have you hung out with Anthony before?
I've basically taught him I actually have. No, this is a real story. I was going to make a joke. He and I were on the Mayer craft together like a decade ago. We were on a boat with John Mayer in 2009, and we didn't know each other.
Yeah.
But he's doing something with an organization my wife works for right now, and they were hanging out a couple days ago. And with
his brother?
Yeah, with his brother. And I was like, oh, he can sing, And so she goes to him. It's like, hey, my husband's a huge fan, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, babe, you didn't tell him about the time we toured together with John Mayer.
Yeah.
And that's when we actually probably met. She was like, no, I forgot that part. I was like, so you just built me up as this huge super fan or something?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, pretty much. It's like, dang it. So,
Swish.
Yeah, swish. That's my story. That's it.
Well, do you have any dirt on him that you want to talk about right now?
This is a safe space.
Yeah. We won't.
No, I leave him out. I don't do my older brother. That's come down on me.
Super
he
wise.
might invoke his inheritance rights or something like that. So I leave him alone.
That's
totally. And you could, because you were obviously not obviously, but for those of you who don't know, you were in the NFL.
Yeah.
Which is football.
That's right.
American football.
Yeah. American football.
Fullback, baby.
Yeah. So I had the opportunity to play at Baylor, and I played 5 years in the NFL. And or the NFL played me, is what I like to tell people. I was on 6 teams in 5 years. I was all over the place, but that was kind of my valley experience to get light enough to climb the mountain, I guess. That's what I tell people. So I use it as just kind of training ground, literally and spiritually.
No doubt.
Okay, so I'm going to be a little personal here, and maybe everybody knows this, but was it an injury? Was it you bolted? Were they like, nope, sorry, you didn't make the cut after all these years?
Well, it's a combination of all of that when you're on 6 teams in 5 years. But the way that it ended, I was carted off the field. I remember playing against the New England Patriots, and I made a block, and Chris Brown, who was the running back at the time, literally fell on my heel.
Oh, gosh.
Turned my ankle. And so I got carted off the field, and they released me because I couldn't play anymore with Tennessee. And then I went to Washington and was there for a while. And Jim Zorn was the head coach then. And I got released after about a year and a half. And then he went to Kansas City. So he calls me to come back to play for the Chiefs. He says, I think you're better than the fullback we have here. Come on. And so I go out in my backyard, basically a little neighborhood football field, a junior high.
Yeah.
And I start doing some bounding with a friend of mine and just doing some stretching, about to run some 40s, just getting in shape. And I was bounding and I heard a pop and hit the ground. It was my Achilles. And at that time I was about 29. And if you pop your Achilles at 29,
you're done.
You're heading to 30. It's a wrap. It's tough to come back unless you're one of those big name guys that they want to keep around and rehab and all that. So once I had that injury is what took me into seminary. And so,
my gosh.
So that's where everything went off.
If that doesn't preach, I don't know what does. That injury took me into seminary.
That's right.
Yeah. So, I mean, so part of your journey is a ton of grief. I mean, even within this past year, and we've talked in this podcast a lot about grief.
Mm-hmm.
And just reading that from your story, I mean, you've had an awful lot of people that are close to you pass away. And then you've also had like this. Was this like the beginning of some of your beginning of grief? Were you already a Jesus guy before this during the football?
Yeah. So I was, but I was kind of running at the same time. And so it was a grief period for me coming out of the NFL, because that's actually what I was using to escape ministry. My dad's Tony Evans, so I didn't want to do anything that he did. That's like Michael Jordan's son trying out for the Bulls. So I was trying to, do whatever I could to stay away from that, that thing that he's already built, him and my mom.
Yeah.
And so God just wouldn't let me run anymore. And so I heard it loud and clear. I went into seminary and came back as the chaplain. And then as we kind of started from that rocky road to another rocky road that would hit at about maybe a decade later in 2018 and 19, when I retired in 2009, so a decade after my retirement, we'd lost 8 family members in a span of about a year and a half.
That's
2 years.
crazy.
And so we started getting really skeptical and cynical about what was going on in our family. We were starting to wonder who's next, because it was happening 4 to 6 month increments. And it was people, my dad flew to his dad's funeral in November of 2019 and then flew home to be with my mother as she passed away in December of 2019.
Wow.
So he buries his father and his wife within a span of 30 days.
Wow.
And so before that, he lost his sister's husband. He lost his brother to bone cancer, his niece, my cousin Winter, at 38 years old. We had a cousin pass away at 30. And so it was just back to back to back. And so we were wondering what was going on, and really trying to pedal through that and trying to figure out where victory really is, doubt and fear and, questioning faith, all of those different things when you're going through a time like that. Even as a minister, you get down so low where you're kind of like Elijah, where he was in a cave and you're just wondering, man, what is going on? And so, we definitely experienced that. And in that, God taught me a lot about true victory, as weird as that is, in defeat. When I was having those conversations with him, pretty angry, frustrated.
Yeah.
That one-on-one time with the Lord was a little bit different than a regular devotional. I tell you that now. It was different. And God said, well, you're coming at me because you have a skewed perspective on what my victory really is. Like, if it's hard for you to watch these grievous experiences you've had in your family, how much harder was it for me to watch my perfect son die so that they all can actually live? And so if you understand where I'm taking them is much better than where they are. You prayed for your mom to be healed. Now she is forever. You prayed for your mom to be with family. Now she is forever. You prayed for your mom to be taken care of. Now she is forever. I gave you your prayer request on a greater scale than you even asked it. But because of your unbelief, you're sitting there and you're grieving as if you're one of those who have no hope. And so it wasn't that it wasn't hard. It's just that I had to reorient myself to biblical victory versus human victory, and realize that he answers our prayers sometimes in ways that we don't understand, but are much better than our understanding. And so that's what I learned through all of that. It's tough. And that's why it's kind of where I learned to fight battles.
I mean, that's beautiful, but how does that actually work? I mean, it's like you're in the after story right now a little bit. I mean, you're always going to grieve the loss of these people. But what's that look like in the middle? Because there are an awful lot of words that I'm sure you had in the beginning of all that. I mean, do you guys have thoughts on that? it sounds great and I love it. And the book's is going to be so great. all this stuff is so great. But when you're in the middle of that, hearing that from you, somebody's like, I mean, they might have some stronger words for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, but they got to realize that they're not alone. They got to realize that, a lot of times when we face these things, we're intrinsically and internalizing them, and we're going into a cave, like I said, and we feel like it's just our family. It's just the Evans family. No, this is a worldwide pandemic that happens day after day in people's lives. And ever since the fall of Adam and Eve in the garden, for our expectations to be anything less just means we really have a good God, because we're living under the overwhelming upside downness of what the world is really supposed to be. And so it was treading through hell to go through all of that, a lot of tears, a lot of grief, a lot of family moments. I remember my sister sitting right outside of where I am right now. She just burst out in tears, Crystal, my oldest. And we just looked at her. We were like, what's wrong? We were just kind of talking about family. And she just was just crying and weeping. She's just like, man, things are just never going to be the same. Our family unit is not the same. Our family structure is not the same. We don't go back to Baltimore anymore. There's no family there. They've all either migrated or passed away. Right. I mean, your whole life just changes in a matter of a couple of years. Yeah. And you're trying to grapple and deal with all that. And I remember me and my dad talking, and I used it in football terms. And I just, this reality hit me. I said, as a chaplain of the Cowboys, I remember Jason Witten being so sad when Tony Romo retired. And it happens all the time. Guys being sad when they moved on from Des Bryant. All of these different things. And I said, the guys are always sad when a player retires because they played with him so long and they built so much camaraderie and so much fellowship and friendship. But the reality is, as long as you have on the uniform, the expectation is from the coach and the owner that you put your head down and you keep playing until you retire too. Because retirement is not mutually exclusive to the person who goes before you. Retirement is something you're going to experience too. And your job until you get there is to put your head down between the lines and play as hard as you can. And so I said that to my dad, and he said, I appreciate that. And that's what we've done in our family, because we know we're going to retire. We know all people retire unless Jesus returns first. That's just the way it is. And so we've just made a decision of the will to put our heads down, to keep fighting, to keep playing, to keep going hard. And what we've been called to do between the lines until we retire too. And when we retire, the people that are still playing, they'll be sad about it. Every player's sad when players retire. They'll be sad about it, and they'll have the same call in their life. You put your head down between the lines and you play hard until your retirement comes. And it just continues to go. And we want to impact as many people as we can impact, so that when we see him, we at least get through all the turmoil and the stress. We at least get, well done, my good and faithful servant. Well done. It'll be meaningful at that point.
Yeah. I've got two questions, and they kind of connect. I think, like, growing up in a family of ministers, I did the same thing, a little different, but what gave you the permission, I think, when you were walking through hell, to be okay, to have the questions and to be able to, like, God, what in the world is happening? Are you still with our family? Are you still going to, work with it? Like, how did you walk through that? How did you have the permission to go there? And then what were some of the practices, I think, that you used to walk through that? I think there's a lot of people that listen to this that might be still in that season saying, well, I'm here and I don't know how to get there. So what's my next step? Like, I'd love to get to the end zone, but how do I get to the line of scrimmage? You know what I mean? And so what were the things that gave you permission to walk through it? And then what were some of the steps that got you out?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think the permission was at a certain point. I remembered my training. I remembered, just like, David fighting Goliath when Saul tried to give him his armor. And David said, no, I haven't tested this. In other words, I haven't gone this way before. I haven't trained in this. And so I'm not going to face this giant in something that's not my training. And for a minute, I tried to test it. I tried to take an armor that wasn't mine, that I've never been trained in. And I thought about going to war in it. And if you know anything about Saul's armor, it's carnal armor. It has nothing to do with the armor of God, because Saul was carnal. And so it was a natural way of approaching a big problem. And I thought about that for a while. And then again, my training came back to me. The book of Corinthians, I don't remember off the top of my head if it's 1 Corinthians 3 or 2 Corinthians 3, 18, but it says, come before the Lord with an unveiled face, meaning pull the veil off and God can handle it. And I said, well, God, if you can handle it, you're about to get it. And so I had that time of going at God and really challenging his methods, challenging all of the things, just like in Job, he told, Job, where were you when I created the earth? He kind of looked at him like, I understand you had the challenge, I understand you had the problem, but where were you when I designed all this stuff? And so I came to the conclusion after grappling with God. And I think that's what people need to know, is that it's okay to grapple with God. It's okay to tell him exactly what you're feeling. It's not like you can lie to him. He knows exactly what you're feeling anyway. I mean, so you need to take the veil off the face and, like Jacob, wrestle with God.
Right.
And when I wrestled with him, it changed the way I walked. I wasn't walking that way. I was experiencing the grief, and I just wrestled with God. And in that time of wrestling is when I kind of got my clearest understanding. So I want people to know that it's okay. Grieving is okay.
Right.
The people mourned for Moses for 30 days when Moses passed away. So grieving is okay. It's not less believer, less Christian, less whatever to be grieving.
Right.
And there just came a point, just kind of to answer the second part of your question, where the practical steps were slow. It's not like we just jumped back in the game.
Right.
Number one was we went away as a family and we rested and we communicated and we talked through all of our feelings. And my brother, he went and sought counseling, those things. We went away. We took a moment to rest. We had to tell my dad, hey, you got to go away, because his instinct is to go back to work,
Right.
And so we were like, no, we need to go away. And so we started slow, and then we rocked the baby from there. And we went, crawl, walk, run to kind of where we are now, continuing to produce for the kingdom of God. So I need people to know that it's okay to have that moment where you grapple with God, you start slow, you communicate with the people you love, you communicate with the people, not only that you love, but that can see through the fog that you have currently in front of your eyes, and then let that lead you and guide you.
That's great.
So good.
Yeah.
I mean, would those be the practices that you were doing at that moment and through that whole season?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we're literally sitting right out here on my sister's porch. We missed, a couple of months of not being visible, whether it was, kind of the social media scene, whether it's the church scene, because we really just needed some time to just heal and to deal with. You can't heal when everybody's in your face, or you're still producing for people, or you're still, you're pouring from a cup that's empty.
Right.
And people just go into deeper depressions and deeper anxiety trying to pour from a cup that's empty. You're more dry than you've ever been in your life because you haven't been poured into. So you have to have a season where you're poured into. So I grappled, came to a conclusion, but that doesn't mean that I wasn't still empty. I grappled, came to a conclusion, I was empty, and then needed to take the time to get filled, to build on that perspective so that I can handle, taking the next step. And those next steps look different for everybody. Everybody's a different walk of life in a different place doing different things. But it starts definitely with healing. This is trauma. And when you're dealing with trauma, you don't have any healing. You're gonna mess up the next situation you go into.
That word grapple is really strong. I think we've all come to a place in our lives where the old ways and answers might not be as comforting or helpful as they once were. Our view of God from our histories, our experiences have gotten us this far, but if we look a little bit deeper, they may have some serious holes and some questions that need to be asked. I know a lot of people get really scared and nervous about asking questions, but don't you think God is big enough to hold these things as we do it with Him? I know this place so well in my story. I know this place of empty and grappling, needing to untangle things and views of God and ourselves and others that have become knots in my heart, my soul, my mind, and my strength. And we all know we don't grow in the good times. So this might be a good time to get curious with God and with others around who can hold just the stuff with you. Have I actually just brought these out to God as if He already sees the stuff and just say, God, here it is. I don't even know where to go with this, but here is all the stuff. Have you done that? And would you try that? And then on the other side of it, who might need us to help them hold their stuff? And maybe it's a question that we just ask them. Hey, can I hold any of this with you? Who's that person?
Where did you learn that? Because I feel like so many of us get that wrong. Like we'll get pieces of it. Like maybe we get to rest, but that one's a tough one.
Right.
Maybe we get like to the communication like you have with your family. How did you learn those traits and then how to put them together? Because what you're saying is, I think, right on, especially in ministry and things like that, where it's like so many of us like try to jump back in or do, be the thing that we've always been or whatever. And, I've got too many sports analogies in my head because you're on now, but it's like, you can't just play a game, you got to train for it. How did you know that? Like what got you to that place where you're like, okay, this is what we've got to do. We can't just jump back in.
There's a couple of things. Well, number one, I said when I grappled, I kind of remembered my training and I put God to the test on it. I said, okay, the word says, be still and know that I am God. Okay, we'll do that. The Bible is clear that the battle is not yours. It belongs to the Lord's. Okay, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Okay, I'll test you on that. Trust in the Lord with all of your heart, and I will make your path straight. Okay, so what he's doing here is he's trying to take responsibility from those who are weary, those who are hurting, those who are grieving, those who are facing giants, those who are going through problems. He's trying to assume the responsibility. The reason why we hold so much burden and we go into emotional depressions outside of clinical things and anxiety and things of that nature is because we're holding the burden. We've become an owner of the burden instead of a steward of it. You're not just supposed to steward your money. You're not supposed to steward your family.
So good.
You're not just supposed to steward those things that are maybe materialistic. You're supposed to steward your battles too. You don't own those either. And so the problem is we take full ownership of our battles, our grievances, and our hardships. And we weren't supposed to, we don't carry enough weight in our legs to handle that burden.
Yeah.
And so what we did is we put him to the test on, okay, we're going to let you handle this emotionally, spiritually, naturally. We're going to let you handle this while we just go slow. We're going to be still and let you download over several months, be with our family, sit in counseling. We'll turn on YouTube and, we'll listen to sermons on different things specific to what we're going through. We took a trip as a family just to totally get away and sit down and do nothing and just talk and allow the time that we spend with each other and with God begin that healing process to where we feel like, okay, I really feel like I can start taking steps. I really feel like I'm starting to get filled up enough to where I can actually be of impact and use based on what we've gone through. And so that's what we were able to do. And my brother actually helped us with that because my brother is more, I think he has a resource coming out called When Faith Meets Therapy. So he's been in therapy and counseling just in general because he likes that as a fine tune, for his life. And when all of these things were happening, he was the one saying, well, we got to be still. We got to understand that this is a time where we just, you can't go 80 miles an hour in first gear.
Yeah.
We were in first gear. I mean, and you're going to burn your engine out.
Yeah.
And so, and that's just what we decided to do.
So good. I love that. I've got a question about, you're hanging out with a lot of younger men as you're doing the chaplain stuff. You said for the Mavs and for the Cowboys?
For the Cowboys mostly, even through COVID, the Mavs kind of shut down during COVID, but yes.
So what are you learning as you're a chaplain for all these teams and mostly just for these younger guys? What are you seeing as these normal trends in these guys? Like what are the presenting issues that are happening in each of these guys? It's kind of like a theme.
Yeah, a theme is, there's a couple of themes, but I would say one of the bigger ones is trust. You have to build trust with these guys and even them putting trust in you, but not only in you, trust in the Lord. They have so many issues that people ignore because of where they are, because of them being, superstars and NFL, and that people assume the money. They don't assume all their family that they're taking care of.
Right.
They don't assume where they come from and the fatherlessness and people coming out of the woodworks trying to take from them. They don't assume the madness that goes behind the scenes. And so it's absolute chaos for a lot of these players who literally will have to close the door on their own family, then go through the stress of, well, they raised me, but now I can't live. I mean, It is absolute chaos. So then you have people that you trusted now taking from you. And so I've seen it all when it comes to that in my 11 years. And so then when I come into the locker room, yeah, you're the God guy. You know what I mean? You're the God guy, but I don't trust you either. Soon enough, you'll ask me for something. You'll want something from me. You know what I mean? You know, totally. So, and then, you know, serve God. Well, so it distorts this reality when they get put in that position, especially when you get put in that position at 22, when $5 million hits your account and boom, everything changes. You never knew how to handle your money. You never, now you can buy everything you want. So it's just chaos. It's chaos for a lot of players. Fortunately, they've kind of built things to where they try to help them train in those other areas. But you can just imagine the chaos that they go through internally while trying to perform on the field. And so I just try to come in initially and just build trust, just let them know that I'm there for them. Rarely ever ask for anything. And then over time, they're asking me, you know, how can I serve? When is the next Bible study? When is the next chapel? I'm learning, I'm growing. But it starts with relationship for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Gosh, it's just such a weird world. My dad used to do that for the Rams way back when. I remember just going and watching him in those contexts. But yeah, you're seeing some crazy things in that room, and you've got, I mean, that is crazy with all that money and all the fame, and then you have real life hitting each of these guys all the time. Are there things that you try to practice as you walk into those places, just in and of yourself?
It's almost like a new team, you know, almost every year, except for the guys that are the keepers, you know. And so definitely come in. I'm not a multi-relational person. I'm not a singular relational person either. I'm familiar relational. So I'm relational with people I'm familiar with. Well, you can't be like that as a chaplain because you're not familiar with it. You know, it's a new team every year. And so it's a challenge for me. I go into the locker room, challenge myself, go introduce myself to the guys, pass out resources. I'm there to make sure that they're cultivated from a relationship standpoint. We have Bible studies at my house, their houses. I want to put them in comfortable environments. And then, you know, just really do what I need to do. There's been some situations that we faced that have been tough over the years. I remember one was we had a player pass away at 3 a.m. in a car accident. And so if you don't have relational equity in those types of moments, when they're on a plane the next day, well, it's the same day because it was 3 a.m. We're on a plane at 10 a.m. going to play the Bengals, and they just lost their teammate at 3 a.m. And Jason Garrett comes down to the tarmac where I am, and he looks me in the eyes and tells me what's going on. So I'm like, wait, what? And he tells me, you know, you're the chaplain, get on the plane and just do what you do. And so, boom, you know, those moments hit where they have team issues or players call because their mom just passed away and they're bawling their eyes out. They don't know what to do. I mean, we've had guys come in the locker room after games to find out their brother died. I mean, it's just like, you know, there's ministry happening all of the time. And if you don't start going hard on your relational equity with those players, then they may be going to the wrong places to try to heal those wounds. And so that's where it starts. And that's been the first several weeks doing that. That's where the ministry is grounded when you're a chaplain.
I mean, when you're anything in life.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great in the chaplaincy, but also just for your neighbor and for my neighbors and for anybody. That's a great encouragement and reminder that even just in our relationships, and even if really the big point of Scripture is for us to be able to love one another really well, that's anybody at any time.
That's right. Yeah.
Just like there's an interesting awareness, just even walking down the street, walking my dog, that there's a different awareness that I could walk with, practice going, oh, you know what? I'm creating equity, not to like do something and like get them into my Christian club, but just so that I can love people really well.
That's right.
At some point, if need be.
Yeah. We'll give them the opportunity to respond, but we are just being obedient.
Yeah. Yeah. That's really good.
Yeah.
I love that. As far as like mental health stuff that you see with these guys, and just now that you do what you do and all the 8,000 things that you do, and you're kind of you work with your dad as well at the church. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. I work with him at the church with men's ministry, young adults, and I'm over all of next gen. So young adults, youth, and children. So I serve there.
So what patterns do you see in that world? And then I just have a question with mental health stuff too.
Well, yeah. So you mean in the world with my dad, in church world?
Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of humans. So that first part was in the sports world.
Yeah.
But now that you're dealing with a ton of men in a lot of different places in life, what things do you see? What like patterns are you seeing in them? Things that they're grabbing to or needing that you just wish you could kind of go, oh, you guys, I wish you could just know this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's important, especially when you're dealing with young people. I'll start with young people. Is we just spend a lot of time on identity. We spend a lot of time on knowing who we are in Christ and not letting the world define that, because the thing with young people is they have so much more information coming at them than we did when we were young. Yeah. And it's coming at a lightning pace. I mean, the hardest thing for me to do, none of my kids have the codes to their phones because I want them to figure out their identity through me because I know where I'm going to lead them and not through the world. If I give them their phone, they're just going to be scrolling through all the YouTube shorts and wishing they were doing shorts, wishing they were figuring out what the trends are instead of being a trendsetter. And so we try to lay down what it is to be a trendsetter as it relates to being a follower of Jesus Christ. And we try to lay that down in the home, but also lay that down just in the ministry as well. So we spend a lot of time on that because that's what the main thing that kids struggle with. Yeah. And so with our men, a lot of times we just deal with a lot of passivity. We just deal with a lot of passivity and being who God has called them to be in the workplace, whether it relates to the gospel, not just at home or with their wife, but just as it relates to discipleship, as it relates to taking on being pillars in the community, being pillars in the church. Because the reality is in the church, the women are everywhere. You got women serving everywhere, going everywhere, doing this, doing that. If we do anything, we don't even have to say much. Women are showing up and they're showing up to help. They're showing up to serve. With men, it's like you got to put a bit in their mouth and try to figure out how to, you know what I mean? We got to ride them. And so why is it that way? Well, since the garden, we were passive, standing there, letting things happen when God has put us in the position to protect, to provide, to cultivate. And we're not doing those things. And that's when things fall apart. And so we really spend a lot of time challenging our men to show up and show out in every area of life as an individual, a family, at the church and the community at large. Those are the areas, those are the quadrants that we challenge them in. How do you
get around? I love that. How do you get around it just becoming a religious duty? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like it can just become, okay, guys, now it's time to just, let's do the good things, the right Christian things.
A checklist.
Yeah, a checklist. Is there a way to get around that? And is there somebody we need to say hi to at your place? Right
Shannon was just coming in. She didn't know I was in here.
I love it.
But she's good. She did the whole back away thing. I gave her this right here. Like here, I'm in an interview. But yeah, so all of Christian life can become that way. I mean, if it's a religion and not a relationship, then you're always going to struggle with that. And so really, we want to teach it from the concept of relating with your wife, relating with your husband, relating with your children, relating with God. Because if you do that in your marriage is going to struggle if it becomes a religion versus a relationship. If you do that with your children, you're going to get rebellion because rules without a relationship equals rebellion. If you do that with God, you're going to burn out. The Bible says, don't grow weary of doing good. Well, if I don't grow weary of things that I love and things that I'm passionate about. And so it's the development of the relationship. And if you're beginning to get tired outside of physical tired, we all get tired, need rest, things of that nature. God made the Sabbath for the man. Outside of that regular thing, there may be a relational equity issue that we have to deal with and talk about because this is becoming monotonous. The way that you love your wife should not become monotonous or not become mundane because you love your wife. And so at the point in which, there's a woman, we always tell the story of a woman who, she was kind of mandated to do these things for her guy that she was dating. And he was asking for this, asking for that. And she just hated it. He had a list, literally. Then she breaks up with him, gets married to the other guy. She throws the list somewhere. And the other guy's just loving on her, relating to her, dating her, all of those things, affirming her, doing all those things. And she looks up one day and she realizes that she was doing the previous list that she hated. And she was doing the previous list. She went and found the list and laughed that how am I doing these things now unknowingly when I hated them before? Well, you have a different relationship.
Right.
You just have you're in a different space, in a different relationship. And so And so that's what we spend time doing, is just relating with God and teaching how to do that, and letting that have its perfect work versus working for the relationship.
Man, that's a great description for that. We this 10,000 minutes is all about, there are 10,080 minutes in a week. There are, or Google it.
Yeah.
And 80 of those minutes are generally spent in some church gathering, if you do that kind of thing. But there are 10,000 other minutes. It's not what do you do for God? So that turns into like this dangerous game of like, well, now I need to do all these good things for God. It's like, no, just how do we join him in the 10,000 minutes and in a relational way, which is exactly what you just described. I love that. That's so beautiful, because it really can, even 10,000 minutes can become, because we have a practice every week that we practice, whether it's praying for your enemy or it's baking a cake for your neighbor, whatever it is. It can just turn into some religious duty. So I love that description. Thank you. That's really great.
Yeah, I think you see the through line even through the first part of our conversation with your family walking through this. Like, one of the first things you talked about was like, we got together and we communicated through this, like the relationships was one of the first things that you talked about. And through that relationship, you found rest and you found peace and you found a way forward. And
that's right.
Through, like, that seems like the through line through almost everything you're talking about, from that to the ministry to the athletics and chaplainships and those things. The relationship seems key. And the older I get, the more important relationship seems to become, and kind of is the foundation of everything that I see Jesus doing. And so I love what you're saying. I'm right there with you, man. It's great.
Definitely.
Except for the bald part. I wish he would have really gone with me on that part. Jonathan, thank you so much. We have just our parting gift to you. Really, this is a parting gift to you. It's not for us. I don't want to.
Right.
Okay.
Selfless.
Yeah, this is selfless on our part. So you're welcome. We have 10,000 thoughts right now. It sounds like we have notes for you.
But it's not.
We have a lot of notes for you on how you could have done this better.
Okay, perfect.
You could have been much better with your heart. Your heart could have come out a little more. And just, okay. No, so we're just doing just a little quick draw of questions, 10,000 thoughts. So your first thought that comes when I say this stuff. Okay, so it's not a lot of filtering.
Right. First thought, right answer.
Okay.
Okay.
Pet peeve.
Boo. Pet peeve.
Yep, that's what I said.
Being out of balance.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Being out of balance, like literally physically or actually?
Both. I'm out of balance right now. I just came back from a chiropractor. So physically. And then being out of balance, meaning having so much going on that you're having a hard time going on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a great answer. Dang it. Swish on that one. Okay. Childhood nickname.
John.
John. Do you like that?
Yeah, they still use it.
Okay. But if somebody else called you John, would you in your heart have a little bit of like, don't do that. You're an idiot.
Maybe a twinge. Because it comes from the family, but I don't trip about it.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not speaking from experience or anything. Okay. Most used app.
App.
I'm going to take the Bible app out just so you're not feeling like you need to be really Christian.
YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The YouTubes. Bucket list.
I got to go to the Olympics with my wife. We were sports people. Go to the Olympics, sit and watch a Super Bowl. And then the last thing would be to spend time in Italy.
Ooh.
I like it.
Let's go. We should have done this in
list.
Italy.
Yeah, that's bucket list later. I mean, I'm going to Israel for the first time next year, so I already know that.
Ooh, that's
nice.
Oh, nice.
Awesome. Well, something you're currently rethinking in your life.
That's a good question.
Just
Currently
questioning, like just kind of
rethinking
going, I want to rethink this.
How I'm being a father.
Oof. Daily.
Yeah.
Daily. Current artist or song on repeat?
Bless Me, Kirk Franklin and Maverick City.
Yep. Last one, the 90s.
The 90s, Michael Jordan.
That's a good answer too. Yeah. It's true.
Swish.
I like
It's true.
he swished every one of those.
Swished all of them.
Dang it.
You passed the test.
Trying to trip you up in some way and it just didn't even work. The bald thing is the only thing I got. That's the only thing I got on him right now. Dude, thank you so much for being with us.
A lot, man.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
So
awesome,
when are all your things coming out? How can people join you in the stuff that you're doing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Fighting Your Battles comes out September the 6th. Personal testimonies, me and my wife talking about our miscarriages, all of the things that we've had to fight through. So you'll be able to walk with me through the book. And so you can get that wherever books are sold now. And then Stories from the Storyteller again comes out in August. That's on Right Now Media or TonyEvans.org. And
cool.
Jonathan Blake Evans on social media or website. You can find all my stuff there. So
awesome.
Love it.
Great.
Appreciate you, man. Great to meet you. Thank you for being with us.
Thanks, fam.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
Hey, if you've listened this long, thank you. We love you and we're grateful for you. Curious of what you heard in this podcast or any of them. Would you go on the socials, 10K Min? Is that right?
10K minutes.
That's what I said, minutes. I just wanted you to finish that. 10K Min.
You're just edgy. You're just
finishing each other's sentences at this point.
No.
Oh, way to witness, Moy. Gosh, yeah.
Ah, man.
Yeah, 10,000 min.
I'm like the
Nuts.
little sibling that they're like, he did it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anywho.
It's literally what my 6-year-old says all the time.
What? Minutes?
Not my fault.
Nuts?
Exactly.
He did it.
See?
Yeah. That's
Anyways.
it.
But it's kind of true sometimes in my family.
Sometimes it is true.
Okay.
But I don't care.
Okay. Anywho. Yeah. What did you guys think?
I liked him a lot.
Yeah.
He was really awesome.
He was great. I thought the conversation could have gone in a lot of different ways, and
Right.
I think his perspective on things was really great.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Moy?
I think it was
Any
great.
takeaways for you?
I'm always thinking about who is this conversation for? And I think this is a very important and necessary conversation for men, especially those who might be walking through something and they don't really know how to take care of themselves, don't really know how to address mental health, maybe feel like they need to just keep going, all of the things men carry, thinking they need to be or do every day. This conversation could free a lot of people who have an idea of what it looks like to be a man and go through grief.
I think you're right. Yeah.
I'm really thankful that he was very honest with, in a sense, encouraging people to slow down, to rest, to communicate where they're at, not just with God, but with the people around them. I think it has a lot of freedom in it, and I really hope those who were listening could hear. You're allowed to grieve how you need to, not alone, but how you need to, and rest and communication is part of that.
Yeah. You have any other thoughts?
Moy just swished it.
She totally swished it. One thing I loved was that he talked about being present for the guys that are on the teams, the sports teams.
Yes.
Sports. But just he's saying that the only way to really love these people is through relational, having and building relational equity.
Yeah.
And I know I said it in the podcast, but that really is a great challenge to think, not how am I bringing these people into my Christian club, but just if the aim of God is for us to be loving one another well, it kind of does start with relational equity.
Right.
So even just seeing little interactions with my neighbors or whatever is just, I want to see that a little different. That was encouraging.
Yeah. No, it was a great conversation.
So if you guys have any other thoughts, let us know. Questions, things you want talked about, discussed. If you want to learn some stuff, we'll bring some experts on with those things. So thank you for supporting what we're doing.
Yes.
Those of you who are doing it every month, thank you. And the one-time people, thank you. If you guys want to get the text messages, text 10K10K to 55678. Once again, 10K to 55678. And we'll send
free
you
shipping and handling.
It's free shipping and handling and a free guitar.
Yo, I need to sign up.
Yeah.
I need a new guitar.
Guys, thank you. Thankful for all of you. Okay.
Yes.
Thanks to you too, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
I'm waving again.
He's waving again.
We'll see you soon.
Bye.